Welcome to this introductory lesson on the integrated reasoning section of the GMAT. In this lesson, we'll learn what this section tests, some important features of this section, the 4 different types of questions, and the score you'll receive. Let's begin with what the integrated reasoning section tests. As its name suggests, this section is integrated. That is, it tests both your quantitative and your verbal skills. So you'll find some questions that test a combination of math and verbal skills, and other questions that test just one skill. Now the nice thing about this section is that it does not require any knowledge beyond what you already need to know for the math and verbal sections of the GMAT. Now in particular, this section places a strong emphasis on real-life math concepts, such as statistics, percents, decimals, and ratios. And on the verbal side, there's a strong emphasis on reading comprehension and critical reasoning. Now, aside from these skills, you do need to know how to interpret visual information in the form of tables, graphs, diagrams, and so on. However, most of these forms will be familiar to you. For the less familiar forms, such as scatter plots and Venn diagrams, we've created individual lessons on those topics. Okay, so that's what the integrated reasoning section tests. Now let's examine some important features of this section. To begin, you will have 30 minutes to complete 12 questions. So you will have about 2.5 minutes to spend on each question. Now, a unique feature of integrated reasoning questions is that most of them involve 2 or more tasks. So, for example, one question may require you to respond to 3 true-false statements, and another question may require you to use drop-down menus to complete 2 statements. So even though this section has 12 questions, you will likely have to complete a total of 25 to 30 tasks. Another feature is that unlike the math and verbal sections of the GMAT, the integrated reasoning section is not computer adaptive. In other words, the difficulty level of each question is not based on whether or not you correctly answered the previous question. This means that you can expect to find a mix of easy, medium, and difficult questions. So don't be alarmed if you encounter a super easy question. It does not mean anything about whether or not you answered the previous questions correctly. Now, even though the integrated reasoning section is not computer adaptive, it's still the same as the math and verbal sections in that you cannot skip questions or return to previous questions once you've answered them. Another important feature of the integrated reasoning section is that you will have access to a simple on-screen calculator. We'll take a closer look at this calculator in a future lesson. For the time being, just know that it's available in the integrated reasoning section only. Okay, so those are some important features of the integrated reasoning section. Now let's take a look at the 4 different types of questions you'll find in this section. They are graphics interpretation, 2-part analysis, table analysis, and multi-source reasoning. Now in future lessons, we'll take a closer look at each question type, and we'll look at specific strategies for tackling them. In this lesson, however, we'll take a high-level view. Let's begin with graphics interpretation questions. In these questions, you're given some sort of visual information, such as a graph, chart, or diagram, and you must use this information to complete 2 statements. Each statement will have a drop-down menu that you must use to select the answer that best completes each statement. The next question type to discuss is the 2-part analysis question. In these questions, you're given information in the form of text, and you must use this information to answer 2 different questions. However, rather than having a separate set of answer choices for each question, you will have one set of answer choices for both questions. Your job is to select one answer choice for each question. Okay, the next question type to discuss is the table analysis question. Here you'll be given information in the form of a table. An interesting feature of this table is that the information can be sorted by each column. Now the sorting is indicated here. By default, the first sorting is the one where the table is sorted by the leftmost column. So as you can see, the title column here is arranged in alphabetical order. Now to sort this table according to different columns, just click on the drop-down menu to reveal the other sorting options. So for example, if we go down here and select % change in downloads, we can see that our table has now been sorted such that the entries in that column are arranged in ascending order. This functionality will allow you to sort the table in the way that best helps you respond to 3 statements that all have opposing answer choices, such as yes, no, true, false, and so on. Your task here is to select the appropriate response for each statement. Okay, the last question type to discuss is the multi-source reasoning question. For this question type, you're given data in the form of 2 or 3 tabbed pages. The information on these pages can include text, tables, or graphics. In this particular example, we can see that the Goals tab is currently displayed. If we wish to view the information in the Projections tab, we just go to that tab and click on it. As far as tasks go, there are 2 different types of tasks that you can expect to see in a multi-source reasoning question. You can expect either a multiple choice question that requires 1 answer, or you can expect to see a set of statements with 2 opposing answer choices, such as true, false, yes, no, and so on. Here, your job is to select the appropriate response for each statement. Now, a unique feature of multi-source reasoning questions is that you should typically expect to see 3 different sets of tasks for 1 information source. Okay, so that's a basic overview of the 4 question types. We'll take a much closer look at these question types in future lessons. Now let's examine the scoring system. Your integrated reasoning score will range from 1 to 8 in 1-point increments. This score is independent of your other GMAT scores. In other words, it has no effect on any other scores. So in addition to your integrated reasoning score, you'll receive an analytical writing assessment score from 0 to 6, you'll receive a math score from 0 to 60, a verbal score from 0 to 60, and a total score from 200 to 800 based on your math and verbal scores. Now, it's important to note that you will not receive your integrated reasoning score immediately after the exam. So on test day, right after you complete the test, you'll receive your math, verbal, and total scores. Your integrated reasoning score and your analytical writing assessment score will appear on your official score report, which will be delivered to you within 20 days of taking the test. Okay, so that's an introductory look at the integrated reasoning section of the GMAT. In upcoming lessons, we'll take a closer look at the individual components of this section, and we'll learn strategies for tackling the various question types.